I'd like everyone to give a round of applause for Steven Moffat.
Well, Steven, what a welcome back to your alumnus.
Yes, I'm very, very excited to be here.
We're very
Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah, audible. Excellent. We're of course, very excited to have you back, because I think we've demonstrated with rapturous applause. Felix has probably covered everything, so...
Well, it's got off.
No longer visible. If we can't be seen, at least we can be heard.
People are just upset about how old I am. Fade it down.
That's fine.
Okay.
So, I will start with that question you probably get fed up of hearing. Ever since you left ever since you left Doctor Who, Steven, are you ever going to come back?
Yes, I'm already back. I've been back for ages, and I've been lying. Some of you know this already because the press release went out about half an hour ago, yeah? So, I've got a lot of backpedaling to do. Now, if you would have noticed, I didn't ever specifically say I wasn't doing it. I said I'd be insane to do it. Well, there you go. I said Doctor Who fans might commit suicide if I came back. What an inducement. So not even to Kirsty work on Newsnight, did I completely deny it. What I like to think is I didn't so much lie to you as studiously avoid the truth. So yes, I've been back for ages. Yeah, there you go. Sorry. But give me some credit for not precisely lying for about 2 years. Yeah? Not a lot of credit coming back for that. Okay.
Hadn't gone into Doctor Who, you could have gone into politics perhaps.
That's what it felt like on Newsnight.
So I suppose what I really want to do is I want to go through your career chronologically, so to speak, if that's all right. Well, of course, you were a student here, this very university in English literature.
And philosophy.
No.
Yes,
English. Between the exact same subjects.
Are you? Well, then you're inevitably going to become the showrunner of Doctor Who.
I hope so.
There's going to be a lot of them.
So basically, what were your creative interests at the time, creatively, so to speak, engaging with...
Well, obviously I was involved in GUSS, which I think is still going. And I think back in my day, we didn't, it's not like it is now. Back in our day, I promise you, we made absolute shit. It was the worst set of television programs anyone has ever seen. We once had a version of the news, you know, the news that's recorded the 2 days before, that is only about what's happened on the campus about which no one cared, right? And it was so ineptly presented. And there were so many things went wrong that just as it faded out at the end, our newsreader went, It was perfect. But also I was doing a bit of theatre in those days. My father is here, sitting at the front. He's the youthful gentleman just there with the hat. And I was doing, we were putting on very elaborate school shows. He was a headmaster back then. And we used to go on, really, really quite elaborate school shows, which I increasingly, I'd get involved in writing them as well as directing them. Because I wanted to get into theatre. Took me about 30 years, but there you go.
But you sort of slightly started off there as well. I believe you did 1 or 2 sort of plays at the Fringe.
I did a play at the Fringe called War Zones. And I don't think I've even got a copy of it. Do you have a copy of my play?
Sorry?
War Zones. Wake up, Dad.
I saw it. Also, half of it was the thing that I wrote. Yeah.
That's right, yes, it was based on an idea of yours. I'd forgotten that bit. I read it to you. That's right. Yes, we put that on. It was for a week, which is not what you really do at the Fringe. And Eddie was in it. There's my friend there, with, playing a crusader with a great big red cross on his front. He looked like an ambulance. And it was, slightly what you'd expect a young man to write. But it's not.
Like a sort of the dream of writing sort of great drama as well.
Well, it was, as has been the case for more or less everything ever since. I entered into it with the feeling I'm going to write a great drama and illumine the world for people, and it just turns into a load of gags. I mean, that's all I ever do. Dracula gags. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we enjoy. That's what your audience keep coming back for. And of course, that's where you started off as well, when you were starting off in TV with comedy, I believe.
Well, not really. With and it's still about my dad here. My first thing in television was Press Gang.
Yes, about a school newspaper.
A school newspaper, which again was a drama series with way too many gags. And now how that came about is my dad at the time was still running this school, and a program lost, thankfully, to the mists of history was a show called Highway. It was a religious television program where Harry Seacole would wobble around the country and sing at frightened children. And they used my dad's school on one occasion, and my dad immediately opportuned them and said, I've got a great idea for a children's television show, which is, you know, bold enough, especially as he hadn't. What he had was an education kit he was working on, which involved the kids working on a newspaper. And he thought this would, be a great idea for a television show. And the producer was Bill Ward, and I hope I'm getting this all right. I'll get corrected from over here in a moment. Thought was quite interested, but nothing happened for a couple of years. And then Bill Ward's then girlfriend, Sandra Hasty, approached my dad with one of the all-time great offers. I'd like to develop your idea for no money. Get used to that one, if you're wanting to be a writer. And he said, okay, I will let you develop my idea for no money, but you've got to let my son write it. And she said, no, absolutely not. But what I will do is let your son, getting this right, write a sample script for it, and I'll tell him what's wrong with it. Yeah, okay.
Pretty much.
Okay, all right. Something like that. I mean, the trouble is, Dad, I've told this story 8 million times. I don't remember it happening. I remember me telling the story. There may be extra jokes. So I wrote a script, and as it turned out, Sandy really, really loved that script. And so by that great moment of good fortune, I was derailed from my theatre career as I imagined, because I got this fantastic television job. And in the same week, this is terrible. This is an indictment of everything about me. I got a check from the Tron Theatre for a reading of the play War Zones for £25, and I got my first check for writing for television. And I suddenly felt a tremendous artistic desire to work in television.
After Press Gang, of course, I believe it was a few comedies.
Well, Press Gang was really quite a funny show.
Yes,
it was really quite funny.
I watched it recently, and sorry, I mistook it for a comedy because
No, please.
it's love that.
I know, but I always set out to write a drama, and then the audience starts laughing the fools. So yes, it was a very funny show, and I was really quite interested in sitcom. As a result, I was mostly just really fascinated. I couldn't work out how they made it, how there could be an audience watching it. And my mate Bob Spears, who was working on Press Gang, directed loads of them, so he invited me along to see one, I think, called Tygo Road. He was directing. I was sort of amazed by that. How slow it was, mainly. But I was pretty amazed by that. And I wanted to write one.
Yes.
And that was Joking Apart.
Yes, of course.
Which is in an odd way a sequel to Press Gang, because I worked so hard on Press Gang, my marriage entirely broke up. And so all I could think of was my wife just left me. So I wrote a sitcom about that.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a very healthy thing to do.
Were you
Don't do that. Don't do that.
In this case, were you aiming to write a sitcom?
I was aiming to write a sitcom. I thought, here is my heartbreak. Please laugh at it. It's not. It was a terrible idea in one sense. I mean, people always ask me if it was cathartic, and you say, what do you mean cathartic? I got over the failed marriage. I got over it, but I still had to write the ruddy show. By the time I got to the second series, I was fine thinking, we'd have to dredge all this stuff.
I suppose I'm going to move on a little bit now into, well, sorry, I'm just see where I am now.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, we must be at chalk.
Yes, and I don't want to go through all of things, but actually I do want to touch on chalk, because that was about...
that was about a school,
wasn't it? You were a teacher.
Well, at this point, nothing had happened to me, except I was a teacher for a while, and my wife left me, so I had limited things to write about. So I did write a sitcom about a school. Now, I was and am a massive fan of Fawlty Towers. So I wrote a sitcom patterned closely after Fawlty Towers, missing one critical detail, which was that Fawlty Towers was the best sitcom ever made, and Chalk, in the opinion of many, was the worst. That's how you could tell them apart. It also resulted in the best joke I've ever seen in a bad review. It was really brilliant, which was someone had noticed the very obviously resemblances to Fawlty Towers, and you know, not unfairly compared my show very negatively to that great masterpiece with the headline, "Chalk and Cleese." I know, that was good. That's the best joke about that show, sadly.
That's brilliant. You should have sort of...
Yeah, well, actually, I just wept in rage at the time. I mellowed.
After Chalk, I'm hoping to getting my timeline here correct. I'm not sure if I am. But you did a sort of few short stories, and you sort of did a short story wrestling for an early sort of Doctor Who.
I did, yes. I did around the same time, I think. I did a short story for a Doctor Who collection of short stories, which, because you know, obviously Doctor Who was off by then. I was a massive Doctor Who fan, and I missed the chance to write it. More or less, at the exact moment I became quite a big name in writing children's television, they took Doctor Who off that afternoon. Oh. I mean, just like that. Both me and Russell applied to Doctor Who for season 27 of the original show. There was no season 27. We were both standing there saying, "No, give us a go." Oh. Yeah, I know.
I mean, at least you got to return.
The world could have been so exactly the same as it turned out.
But maybe with slightly less of a budget. So.
Yes.
Sorry.
Go on.
I suppose moving swiftly, you've got a very, very long resume of shows, so I sort of need to slightly run through them.
Oh, no, okay.
Sorry. After that, was it Coupling that came next after Chalk? Or...
yes, that was the next continuing sitcom I did. That was after I met Sue, who's now my wife, and that's gone a bit better than the previous one. And so it sounds a bit brutal, but you know what I mean. And at the very beginning of our relationship, I sort of thought, you know, that's an interesting little moment in your life when you've got a whole new community forms around you when you're a couple for the first time, a proper couple, and you do amazing things like you own staircases. It's amazing when you grow up. It's your own stairs. You've got an upstairs in your house and stuff, and I liked all that. I thought that'd be something to write about. And so I had a boozy lunch with someone, and I reeled past Sue's office and left a note on her desk saying, "Coupling, ask me about this later." Could have gone differently, couldn't it? That was a great show. I loved that.
It ran for 2 seasons. I mean, I imagine that's probably one of the ones. Sorry, I finished it recently. I watched it so quickly, it sort of only felt like 2. And I suppose that must be one of the shows that must be closest to your heart.
Well, I mean, I loved doing it. It feels like a very long time ago now, but it was great. It was very popular. There was the. I remember we sort of made quite a big splash in our first year. You know, it was doing really well, won some awards and all that sort of thing. And then some little show that went nowhere called The Office turns up on the same night, which was boom. Everything in comedy was about The Office.
Yeah.
And we were sort of in the lee of that. But it carried on, and it was quite a success. It did really well.
I suppose shortly after this comes Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Around the same time. I don't want to ask you too many questions about this.
Okay.
As we let you know, but the one I do want to start with is Curse of Fatal Death.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean,
The Curse of Fatal Death, that's a comic relief skit about Doctor Who. Now, what it was that Sue was running comic relief that year.
Oh, right.
She was doing the big show. And when you're doing comic relief, when you're running it, you really have to go around and beg people to work for nothing with the inducement, you'll be doing good in the world. We're media people, we don't care. So you have to try and find reasons why people want to do it. And of course, the first thing that everyone said to Sue was, you're married to a comedy writer, can you get something out of it? I was trying to avoid the subject, right? I was hiding. And she said, okay, but what would you do if it was Doctor Who? And I said, yeah, I'd do it if it was Doctor Who. And I absolutely thought, between that and the short story, that is my only shot at writing this. My only shot at writing Doctor Who is going to be this. A very, very unsafe prediction, as it turned out.
I suppose Sue is obviously, you seem to have done so many projects for years and for obvious reasons. So do you think there's sort of a bit of a, I mean, obviously you started off your career, your father seems to sort of grifted a little bit for you there. I assume it's sort of quite, basically you need to grift to get into the industry.
Well, the trouble with ever with telling the story of how you happened to get into the business, and everybody's story is weird, everybody, that's not really how you get in. Honestly, if you add all those stories up and take what is in common from them, is the fact that you handed in a script that was any good.
Right.
Seriously, that's get good at writing the scripts and wait till some freakish luck comes your way. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about being any good at it. I know that sounds self-serving and not true, but I think it's better to say that than say you have to wait in your room until something extraordinary happens. It's not like that.
Nothing will happen at all.
No. Well, something extraordinary will happen. What does it matter if you can't take any advantage of it? If you can't actually produce the goods when you've got to. I'd written loads before I had to write that first press guy.
Yes.
I'd got reasonably good at it. Reasonably good. I haven't gone back and looked, so I can't swear it was reasonably good.
I am sorry, it's just slightly spontaneous thought. I'm going off piece now.
No, it's scary now.
A couple of years ago at the festival, I saw Alan Lee with his illustrations for Tolkien's works, and he says that he'd drawn like 10,000 or 100,000 terrible drawings, probably did one good one, and that's when you can probably start. I imagine the same probably true of writing.
You've got to write an awful lot of rubbish. And the trouble with writing the awful lot of rubbish is you have to believe it's brilliant at the time. Otherwise, you'll never get to the end of it.
Right.
You've got to think, this is amazing. Stadiums will be full of people applauding this. And the trouble is, it's not. It's absolute rubbish. But you've got to write. You've got to get good at it. It's not mystical. This isn't, I mean, people always talk about writing in terms of, your muse and inspiration and all those things. How about just getting good at it? How about reading all the people who have done it brilliantly and seeing what they do? I keep saying about television, it's the only job in the world where you get to watch the very best practitioners of it in the corner of your living room. Says I, because I'm a very old man, I now realise you watch it on your phone or your iPad. I apologise, youthful people. But yes, you can see the best in the world do it all the time. It's available to you.
Yes, yeah, and certainly even more available now than ever, as you say.
It certainly is.
This will be a question we will return to later if we've got time. Where did we get to? We got to coupling, and then
Doctor Who.
After that came Doctor Who.
The great unmentioned.
Actually, one question I do have about that. These are scripts we're talking about. You wrote, probably a decade or so ago.
Yeah.
I look at scripts that I wrote last year, and I think, oh God, what was I thinking? has your view on your old scripts sort of changed at all in that regard, or do you still love them as much as you did at the time?
I don't know if I loved them at the time, but I thought yours were shit. I mean, that's a tough one. With Doctor Who and Sherlock, you can't, I'm not really going to pretend those are not enormous hits.
No,
I mean, there isn't any metric on which these are not, that didn't work, that worked. So I assume we were all doing a pretty good job on that. So I don't have an awful lot of things. I mean, there's always details and things you wish you'd done better. But mostly I think, that's a good show. Well, and when I see bits of it, I think, no, that's good. That's a proper good show. I don't think that about Chalk. You know, I do think it about Doctor Who.
Yes, no,
So I don't have a lot of regrets about that. It would be kind of a little bit affected of me to pretend I did.
Yeah,
so, you know, it's all over the world. I mean, Karen Gillan's one of the biggest movie stars in the world now.
Right.
Came out of that show, so I'm not exactly feeling bad about it.
you'd have to sort of be ridiculously...
Well, what was I expecting? What level of success was I expecting if that wasn't enough?
It's almost sort of more egotistical to be sort of ridiculous.
Yes, it would be. So I know, I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah. But your ones, a year ago.
Embarrassing, because when I sort of vaguely got interested in screenwriting, what I was doing was, well, let's do Doctor Who fan fiction, so there's a painful nugget of truth in that. But in 2011, turning out then, you briefly flirted with film. Well, I think that's when the film came out, I'm not sure when you were writing it. There's Steven Spielberg's take on
Oh, yes,
Tintin.
yes. Yeah. Well, there's an interesting lesson in that. Never take a job because you're flattered. I got approached by Steven Spielberg to write a Tintin movie. And it went on a bit, as these things do. There was a huge writer's strike in the middle. And at a certain point, I just thought I was played out on it. So I can actually say I left Tintin to do the Doctor Who job. I ran away from LA to Cardiff. It's a career trajectory previously untried. And Steven Spielberg phoned my house to accept my resignation. So there you go. Spielberg on the phone, he says, okay, bye.
I mean, it's one thing to say that, oh, I've worked for Spielberg. It's another thing to say, I turned Spielberg down, I decided to walk away from
He's
him.
a really nice man, I don't like saying that. He is, he's very nice. They were all really lovely on Tintin. I was the bastard. I was the one to say that. Because normally you talk about how you go to LA and everyone was awful, dreadful. And, they were actually all really nice, really nice. And I said, look, I just want to go and run Doctor Who.
What is it about the Hollywood experience? How does that differ from TV and perhaps writing films more generally different from TV?
I'm not an expert in writing films, and I'm not an expert in working in Hollywood at all. I didn't especially like it, but then I don't know that slotting into somebody else's culture and suddenly having to make sense of it is the best way to experience it. You know?
Right.
I mean, it was different. I didn't enjoy I mean, the people were nice. I found the plod through Tintin a bit wearying in the end. And you're not in control of it.
Right.
You're absolutely not in control of it. Which I was kind of used to a measure of control. But I've done stuff in America since. It's different. And they produce some amazing stuff. So they're doing something right. I just quite like it here.
It's just not so.
It's not for me. Yeah.
No, I think they can.
And they're nice people. You know, generally speaking, they're nice. Right up until they fire you. And then they're not unpleasant because they simply don't speak to you.
The other show you're most known for is Sherlock. And I'm not going to get the episodes or anything like that, except for one thing, which was the original unaired pilot, way back in 2009, I think. Can you tell us a little bit about that, why it eventually differed from the final product, which I think was A Study in Pink?
Yeah, that's right. They were both called A Study in Pink. We did the pilot. We were really, really pleased with it. The BBC were really pleased with it. But they said, we don't want it as an hour show. They'd had a huge success with what is the Kenneth Branagh series, where is this slightly depressed detective who's in Sweden? that one. Well, and they had a big success doing 90-minute shows with that. So they wanted us to fit into that, and they said, and I remember we got, Mark and I got the phone call from Sue when we were at a Doctor Who read-through, and she said, you have to think about this. They said they will green light it if we make it as 3 90 minutes, and Mark and I said, yes! And she said, do you know what you're going to do? No, we'll just do it that way. We'll just do it that way. And but the other great thing that happened between the pilot and the later version was, well, first of all, we made the second version of A Study in Pink after after the subsequent episodes. It was the third in the production block, so we knew what we were doing. And the brilliant Paul McWigan, the director, got involved with it, and so much of the visual styling of Sherlock, which is so important to that show, it came from him. The text on screen, the sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, techno noir or something, or sitcom noir. I mean, I think there was something very, very powerful about the fact that, you know, that it had this grand air about it, all these dark shadows and beautiful cinematography. And underneath that, without you really noticing, it's kind of a sitcom about two idiots in a flat solving crimes. We used to call it men behaving badly solving crimes.
The sort of subtitle.
Yeah. And that made a massive difference and made it into the show. We loved our pilot when we made it. Once we'd made the version with Paul directing, and with us all being a bit more clued up about what we were doing, we came to find the pilot a bit scrawny and underimagined. But yes, that's where it all came from. You know, most of the decisions were made on that show. That's where all the casting came from.
I mean, it's an interesting different episode. I'm sure many people in this room probably already know, but you can actually find the on-air pilots online somewhere, so you can go and compare the two.
Oh, you could buy the DVD.
Yeah, sorry, yes. I mean, you can buy it. You can find it on the DVD.
Stay within the margins of the law.
We're students. We're on a budget.
If we can't.
You mentioned, so part of the reason why they changed the format was to fit that sort of 90-minute style, and that was, correct me if I'm wrong, and I was sort of growing up around that time, so I was sort of thinking about other things, but that was a slightly different format to what had come before. Like, I mean, the sort of American serialized way of doing things with billions of episodes per season, each one completely episodic, but
it was new to us, and it wasn't, and we were not the first show to do it. As I say, it was Wallander that did it first. It remained a very odd show. I mean, in the sense that it was a huge, contrary to what is written about it now, it was a massive hit from the day it went on. It didn't sort of build. It was massive on its first episode. I don't know why. Never understood why it was. Everyone knew in advance they were going to like it, but the ratings for the first episode were through the roof, and it seemed to be the most famous show on British television within about a day. Everybody was talking.
Yeah,
it was extraordinary. Our phones were jumping on the table all the time. I've forgotten where I was going with that. What was I talking about?
Sherlock, something to.
No,
it's
gone.
I suppose partly why I wanted to highlight the slightly different format is because TV seems to be kind of moving in that direction now. The landscape.
Oh, yes, it was about, yeah. In the case of Sherlock, it became huge. Our 2 stars became huge. There was, at that point, no possibility we were going to get a longer run. Right. They were going to come back occasionally and do 3 90s. And they did that 4 times. They came back 3 times plus a special. That was pretty good going. You know, we couldn't afford them, really, from the second series on.
Right.
You know, yeah, and, you know, they did Sherlock because they felt an obligation to it.
Right.
They were loyal to it. But, you know, Benedict was a massive star, so was Martin. They were sort of out of our reach almost instantly. But, you know, fair dues, they came back to do the show. It began. But, you know, at a certain point, they'd had enough.
Yes. No, I mean, I suppose it's only so long you can keep on doing this anymore.
Yeah. Not for me. I'd keep
no,
it forever.
No, I can understand that. So, yeah, the point I was making, I suppose, is that we're sort of looking at that kind of format now in television where it used to be, you know, go back far enough, you know, say Doctor Who, 20-minute episodes.
Yeah.
then be loads of them, then 13 episodes per season, 45 minutes. Now 8 episodes per season, each 1 an hour. It seems to be the sort of runtime is short.
Everyone seems to be moving to the British model of the shorter run.
Right.
Some people in America think that's nonsense because they destroyed their own business model. They used to make huge numbers of episodes, sell them into syndication and become multimillionaires. And then they blew up their own business model because they didn't have enough to sell into syndication. But artistically, it's probably better. I think if you have shorter runs of shows, you have more shows, but they don't last as long. And we've always grown up with that notion. I mean, Doctor Who was an outlier back in the day when it was in the old show, because they were doing 26, 25-minute episodes a year. 26 of them. And no other show was doing that. That was just Doctor Who. In fact, if you go right back to the 60s, it was on every week of the year. Maybe it was off for 4 weeks. Every week of the year. Now, people now and then, young people, foolish young people, slag off the special effects on the old 60s. But I go and look at the rest of television, right? Doctor Who's trying to do giant monsters and spaceships, and Z-cars couldn't do a convincing car, right? So come on, fair dues.
Bearing in mind, I mean, no budget and looking at the competition, I mean, they're not doing badly.
No.
What was going on?
Brilliant stuff.
Just how am I doing for time, roughly? 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay. Well, moving quickly on this then. Yes, and you talked earlier about sort of people streaming on iPads and so on, instead of just traditional broadcast television. Has this impacted you at all? What's your thinking on this?
Not really. Not really. I mean, I think generally speaking, it's quite interesting that we've all, and I don't just mean a younger generation, we've literally all moved to the new model, which is I expect a show to be bingeable. If I liked an episode, I expect the next one to be available immediately, you know? And that I think is really interesting. I mean, the quote I keep coming out with is, your bookcase doesn't tell you when you should read. Why should your television tell you when you can watch? If you want to watch all 6 episodes in one night, that's your choice. Now, people talk a lot about, weekly viewing and people assembling around their televisions. And I kind of think people should be assembling around other people and having fun. Television should be watched on the bus. Television should be watched when you've got nothing better to do. I think it's a good model, but I also don't think it matters whether I or anyone else thinks it's a good model. Everyone is going that way. Everyone's going to the binge model. I just do. If I watch a show that I really like, I get really bad-tempered if the next episode isn't immediately available. I regard it as an outrage.
Another big change, of course, which I think is a concern for some writers, is generative AI. That's a very present thing in the media at the minute. Big companies will cut costs as they can. Do you think this is a danger, or do you think it is potentially a tool you could use?
I think it'll end up being a tool we can use, I would think. My son Joshua, who understands these things and is about 17 times more intelligent than me, does not believe that's ever going to happen. It's all it can ever do is sample stuff. It's not going to do more than that. I mean, we spend an awful lot of time in my industry talking about what if us highly important screenwriters and designers go out of work. From what I understand from hearing about it, there's some medical advances coming using AI that are extraordinary. Maybe that's a little bit more important. And also, what about those guys who invented AI? They've invented something that makes things, and we're complaining, what if somebody takes my job on Doctor Who? Oh, fuck. I mean, what about the guy who invented AI? What a bloody genius. Those people, what an extraordinary achievement. Yeah. Amazing. I once got AI to write. I asked it to write a poem in the style of Philip Larkin about a hospital and a bench. It was terrible, but it was instant, and it was recognizably in the style of Philip Larkin. And terrible. Philip Larkin if he'd had concussion. But it was like that. Imagine making a bit of software that can do that. That's incredible. We spend more time applauding and less time thinking, what does it mean for me and my stupid job?
I think that's a very healthy outlook to have. I mean, it's going to be here regardless of whether we want
Yes,
it
it's
or
not
not,
that
so-
you can stop it.
Right.
I mean, what I think say, we should bring a halt, what, and we're going to phone the Chinese. Just stop it, would you mind? Vladimir, no more AI. I mean, have you tried that with the invasion? You know, I mean, come on. No, it's coming. It's always coming.
Yes. I haven't got very much time now, so I'll just do two very quick questions. You always seem to be working on something. You know, this year you had Friend, which was incredible. I've never laughed more in my life. Next year, Douglas is cancelled.
Yeah.
Can you tell us anything about it at all?
Douglas is cancelled with Hugh Bonneville and Karen Gillan, and Alex Kingston, and Ben Miles, and the amazing Simon Russell Beale and Nick Mohammed. I really love it. I'm really, really pleased with it. So I'm putting my neck on the line there a bit, but I really think it's very funny, very good. It's a 4-part story about a man, a newscaster, who makes is overheard making a sexist joke at a wedding, and is worried that whatever the sexist joke was, he claims he can't remember, might get out in public, and it might end his career. So it moves on quite quickly from that.
Yes.
But that's how it begins. That sort of fear of cancellation or fear of opprobrium or whatever. But it moves on quite quickly from that. And I think it's funny, and I think it's good. Every time anyone talks to me about it, they assume it's me writing something about, as an old man saying, you can't say anything these days. Well, first of all, as an old man, can I tell you something really important? You never could say anything, right? It never happened. People were getting cancelled 2,000 years ago. Ask Socrates, right? He used to use hemlock. This has got quite mild. Ask Jesus of Nazareth. Right? Cancellation is not new. We're just a bit sweeter about it. He wasn't up there on that cross saying, they were mean to me on Twitter. So it's not new. It's something we've always done. It's interesting. And I think every single person, including all the people in this room, every single person is a hypocrite about it. Because we all want to cancel somebody, but we don't think we should be cancelled. Right. I am absolutely 100%, very seriously in favour of free speech for people who agree with me. And not for anybody else. Because those guys don't deserve it. They're wrong. That's what everybody thinks. And I find, I've got no solution to this. I think it's interesting, and I think it's funny. Because we're just a blundering bunch of old and young hypocrites on the whole subject.
Yes, and we should always ridicule ourselves.
Yes.
One very quick final question. Regarding your career moving forwards after this, you always seem to be generating new ideas. Do you have any ideas at all of the sorts of things you might want to explore after?
Well, yes, I've got a couple of things I'm writing pilots for at the moment, which I'm quite interested in, obviously. I'd like to write another play. I really enjoyed that. I had a great time doing that. That was just such a hoot. One thing I'd quite like to do, because I haven't done it for years, and I think is slightly missing, is what happened to the audience sitcom in this country. Everybody loves them. I mean, critics hate them. But they hate everyone because they're lonely and asymmetrical. Right? I mean, so, but the audience, you put Dad's Army on, even now, and people watch it all these years later. And I know it's not fashionable to like something like Mrs. Brown's Boys or Miranda or whatever the hell it is we're talking about. Lee Mack's got that brilliant show.
Oh, Not Going Out.
Yeah, Going Out. People love those shows, but they're not posh. You're not sophisticated like that sort of thing. I quite like to do a proper make everybody laugh, Unfriend style, daft sitcom with all the jokes that particularly annoy the twisted and lonely. Right? Let's make sure there's a toilet joke every single week.
Yes.
Just to get those guys. I think we should be above toilet humour. What do you know about toilet humour? You've never managed to avoid your balls. You're fucking out.
Rally and cry behind shit. Right, so I guess this is the bit everyone's probably been waiting for.
Yes.
We're going to turn to questions, and I'm sorry, I refuse to take questions from anyone wearing a fez, but I hope it's not too late.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Very excited to be here. So this came up, I'm Patrick, president of the Doctor Who Society. This came up during the main interview portion, but looking back on it now, is there anything you've changed about your time as showrunner of Doctor Who?
I'd have more time off, but I can't think that's really feasible. What would I change? There's lots of little details. There's things in episodes that I don't like so much. There's scenes I didn't think we nailed. It was such a blizzard all the time. By the time you'd noticed you'd made a mistake, you'd made two more after it. You know, it was always so intense. I wonder if Chris was really smart, and Russell is currently being smart, in reducing the episode count to the point where the show never overlaps itself. Because every year I did it, the show overlapped. You'd have several episodes, you know, you'd have season 5 would overlap with season 6, would overlap with season 7. It was hellish at times. But generally speaking, as I said earlier, and I mean, and I don't mean it straightforwardly in an arrogant way, I just mean that worked. I mean, you know, everyone talks about ratings as if they matter. I was in a position to know how much money that show generated. That's the number you want to look at. And that's why Doctor Who still gets made, right? It's massive. It's a massive show, and it's never not culturally important. It's always been. So no, there's not really a lot. I mean, I'm sure I could have done it better, but you always think that. You're probably always right. But I worked every weekend. I worked every holiday. I missed dinner. There wasn't any more time I could have given to it without dying. So, not really. No regrets. Sorry.
I'm one to agree with you. I'm a big fan.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm keeping you in mind, though.
Speaking on behalf of the Filmmaking Society, and my question is, how much is your writing shaped by outside factors, and how do you juggle this? Factors such as the demands of the industry and producers, practicality and budget, and also, especially connected to connecting storylines across the series.
How do those outline
How do you juggle your creativity?
Well, I mean, because that's the job. I mean, if you write a novel, then you can write anything. And that's probably quite terrifying. If you write Doctor Who, you better make sure most of the planets are at night and covered in mud and maybe underground. You know, I mean, you have to, engaging with the difficulty of making a show as complex as that, with the demands of what it must be for the beat. In terms of the style and character of the show, it was sort of welded into me. What Doctor Who had to be, that it's fundamentally, don't hit me, a children's show that the adults adore. That's what it used to say in the books, a children's show that adults adore. And that's what it is, at its heart. So it must never do anything that doesn't delight and perhaps horrify children. That's what. But that's you know, it's, I mean, you can't imagine any other show being pitched like that now, can you? We're going to make a show that gives children nightmares. We're going to put it on in the early evening. Great. So negotiating the difficulties of the production, of the limitations, of the speed, well, that's what you signed up for. That's quite exciting. And a lot of the best things about Doctor Who come from those limitations. They really did. We can't afford a spaceship, but we do have a police telephone box from Dixon and Dockery. So we can use that. We're going to have to change the actor, so they invent regeneration, one of the greatest ideas ever. The fact that Doctor Who's style, even in its high-budget version, is always about someone in the end, well, usually Doctor Who, being trapped in a room with monsters scratching at the door. That style comes from budgetary limitation, right? And it's fundamental to the show. At some point, the Doctor will say something like, you know, we thought we were keeping them out, but actually we were inviting them in. That's the show. So the limitations are what make it special. So, and you sign up for it for that reason. That's what's exciting. Yeah. Now, she's been waiting for ages for this. Just come on. I don't like the way, guys.
Sorry, who was it?
Mine is more of a general question. So you said you have the opportunity to reject Stephen's failure, which I'm not sure many people have had the opportunity to do. So how have you dealt with rejection throughout your career? Assuming you have.
How do you deal with rejection? Constantly. Well, that's going to happen. I mean, extend that to humiliation and failure. Are you actually worried about that? Is that okay? Okay. Do you want me to give you my three-step program for dealing with failure? Right. Failure, if you fail in television, is very, very public. The first thing you've got to understand when you've had a complete disaster. I recently sat at a show I really loved doing, The Time Traveler's Wife, really, really tanked. What you've got to understand is, first of all the people who know and love you don't care. So stop going on about it. The second thing is make up 3 jokes about your failure. I'm not kidding. This is really good. This is gold I'm giving you. Make up 3 really good gags about your failure. So do you know the future? What I said about Time Traveler's Wife the next day was, I was saying, well, you know, you realise when half the press are speculating whether you're a paedophile, that you've maybe not gone down that way. The other one was, this is quite dark, don't worry, I'm fine, the bad reviews for Time Traveler's Wife came out the same week as I had a positive biopsy for cancer. And I read my positive biopsy and went, this isn't the worst feedback. I'm fine. It was all sorted. But, so you need that. And then you look cool. At some point when you make it, this is the third thing, when you make jokes about your own failure, at some point you will realize why it failed. And here's the nasty bit. Take the blame. Don't blame everybody else. Everyone does this. It was the scheduling. That's the great one. It was the scheduling. What do you mean? We put it in the corner of people's living rooms. What else do you want? Right? We beamed it to their houses. It was the scheduling. No, it wasn't. Take the blame for your failures, because if it's your fault, you can do something about it. If it was a cruel world ranged against you, then you've just admitted defeat and you'll never, ever recover. So take the blame. Let it sting. It only stings for a moment, then do something about it. That's how you deal with it. It's really important to deal with failure and rejection, because that's 95% of the job, right? The other part's lovely, and we only ever hear from people like me or other people about their successes. It would be much more interesting to hear about people's failures, because that's the learning curve. The success is, the only thing you learn from that success is how clever you are. You're not, but from a failure, you learn how stupid you are, and that's incredibly useful. All right, there you go. Go fail, it's fine. But don't bore your friends, that's really important.
Hi, Steve. I wonder if I can ask about just the writing university database, where is that like, does he mostly let you write this independently, or is he involved in like planning and data editing? How does all that work?
Well, to be honest, he leaves me completely alone. We're very good friends. But my job on Doctor Who was, and now I can finally repeat again, is to do one he doesn't have to worry about very much. I had people like that too. I'd get Toby Whithouse in, or Mark Gatiss in, or Chris Chibnall in, and their job would be to say, look, I've got to write the finale, so could you just give me, could you take care of that, and will I go and do that? So it's collaborative in the sense that he and I talk all the time. We talk usually about what Doctor Who we watched recently on Britbot, but we talk. And it's, in the case of the GUSS, really weird to be admitting this. When I was getting involved in the series again, I pitched several ideas to him. I sent several emails. We quite liked all of them. Until at one point, I remember I sent an idea that I thought was dynamite. And I got an email back within 1 minute saying, that's it, go write that. I want that immediately. So I did. So it's that, but it's a collaboration of, as it is with me and Mark, of enthusiasm. It's not like we're sitting there discussing and noting and detailing each other. What we're doing is giggling and laughing and shouting and bounding around the room about how clever and exciting all this is. Because if you're not doing that on a show like Doctor Who, or frankly on any show, what's the point? If you're not thinking this is fun, it is fun. It's great fun, so you try to have fun doing it. But like that, we don't. But we've never sat in a room and written together. I had with Mark, but not with Russell.
In societal context of like when Doctor Who came out in 2005.
Sorry, I'm not quite hearing you. My hearing is rubbish.
Since 2010, when Series 5 aired of Doctor Who, and thinking about now, when Season 1 is coming out, the difference in culture and society, how have you found kind of coming back to write for such kind of a very similar but yet very different society, and things that perhaps have moved on or have changed in the way that we view TV, but also what's in TV and how we represent people in TV and in Britain?
Well, we are talking about a show that started in 1963 and hasn't changed that much. You know, it's I don't know. I think you're slightly foolish to think it's your job to reflect society. I don't think it really is. I know people always say it is, but why? I mean, do you want your television just to broadcast agreement at your face? Yes, you're right about everything. Here's your world. Yeah, I don't think you just try and think, you just try and tell exciting stories. And Doctor Who is very much Doctor Who. And I can assure you, having read quite a few of the new ones, that it's still that show, right? There's tiny little details change. But basically, he runs out the TARDIS and says, there's something terribly wrong here, and sorts it out for a while, right? And blows everything up at the last minute. You know, it's that show. And I don't really worry about it. I mean, obviously, the main difference I've noticed about the world is that there's an awful lot more people younger than me than there used to be. So I'm aware that I'm the old geezer coming on to do Doctor Who. But that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I don't mind that. There's also young people writing on the show. I don't think you're ever really that engaged by that. Tell a good story. It's not your job to reflect people's culture back at them. It really isn't.
So my question is about, you said yourself that you've been writing sitcoms and things like fantasy shows. Is there a particular difference in the way that you write them or the freedoms that you have?
No. I think stories are stories. I mean, obviously if you're writing something that sets itself up to be a comedy, you have to be more militant about the jokes. You have to say, we really can't afford not to have gags here. But I seem to be writing that way anyway. I mean, the business of story remains very much. I'm not even sure what I said is true about comedy. All that matters is that you get people to keep watching. That's all you're trying to do. The thing I always say is just imagine someone is halfway out the door, putting their jacket on, going to the pub to meet friends, possibly love and the future, and try and stop them. Right? Try and get them back and become a couch potato like the rest of us. So I mean, I don't think there is a major difference. I never even think about it, to be honest. No worries.
Thank you very much for being here. Also, can I just ask you for a piece of television, not your own, that you've watched and just thought, damn, I wish I'd written that, that's so brilliant.
Is there loads of things?
What's your favourite?
Well, probably the thing I would most like to have written would have been the West Wing, the early years of the West Wing.
Fantastic.
The first 4 years of that, I absolutely loved. There was a series recently called Severance, which I thought was such a brilliant idea. It was hard not to sulk that somebody else had it and executed it so beautifully. I quite often do, but I quite often think I wish I had written that. But I think that's a good learning curve. That's a good way to be. Because
Like
you know,
Ted Lasso.
Hmm?
Have you watched Ted Lasso?
Ted Lasso, I really like Ted Lasso.
It's good, isn't it? I'm such a fan of you. No, watch parts of that. But
See, I like the what I regarded as a stablemate to it in a way. I liked more the show Shrinking with Harrison Ford in it. I thought that was absolutely storming, but it seems to be an awful lot, much less well known. And the show Silicon Valley, I've been watching that a lot. You watch that? Anyone watch that show? Silicon Valley, very, very funny show. I strongly recommend it. I often, every time there's a good joke, I think, damn, didn't make that one. Comedy writer watching a joke is like this. Fuck.
thanks very much. Oh, by the way, I really like the Time Traveler's Wife. Everybody said it.
Oh, no.
Severely underrated novel.
All right, good, I'm pleased. I'm pleased.
How did you come up with the idea of the Weeping Angels?
The Weeping Angels?
Yeah.
Because I saw them. I did. This is true. This is how I came up. We were on holiday in, I think, Dorset. It was a family hotel there where you could take kids, you know, and no one objected. And I took my little boys for a walk, and I walked past a boarded up church next to the hotel, and there were gates just like at the beginning of Blink. And they were chained up just like in Blink, and it had the words "unsafe structure" on the gates. I thought that's pretty creepy. So I went and peered inside, and there was a weeping angel. There was a stone angel with its face in its hands, like that, exactly like that, and that stuck in my mind. So a couple of years after Blink had gone out, I took Joshua back to that place. He's got a bit older now. Obviously, kids, they don't remember things from 2 years ago. I said, do you want to see the original Weeping Angel? He said, yeah. So I took him there. And it was gone. It was gone. And I'll tell you something else, mate. I have looked up what that statue could have been. I don't think I invented the idea of this. With the wings and the solemn face and hands. I don't think I invented it, but can I find it anywhere? I don't think it, I might have actually, well, or the angel climbed out of my brain or something. I don't know what it is. I can't, and of course every time I look up lamenting angel or weeping angel on Google search, I get photographs from TV shows I made. That's not a lot of use. So no, it's true. I don't think I invented the idea of an angel with its face in its hands, but I cannot find it. And it went missing from that church next to the hotel in Dorset.
You gave me lots of nightmares from that episode, Mr. Moffat.
What?
You gave me lots of nightmares, Mr. Moffat.
All right. I've got a weeping angel in my garden. Well, it's mostly in my garden. Sometimes it's in our bedroom. I'm sure it means no harm.
Thank you, Gavin. I'm currently working as a development assistant for a production company, and I was just wondering if you had any advice from the writer's side about people in my position when it comes to working with writers and developing those relationships and like passing notes, which can be quite tricky at times.
Well, I don't envy you because the notes thing isn't, you know, writers don't like them. We just want praise. Well, that's a good question, and people don't ask it enough, and people don't answer it often enough either, obviously. How do you give notes to writers? Your objective is to make them excited about the next draft. It's not to tell them what's wrong with what they've done, because no one wants to hear that. It's to make them excited about what they'll do next. You should know, and I think I've got quite a good angle on this. If you have got a script meeting and then they plod on for a while, as you know, if I see, and suddenly an idea comes along and I suddenly see the writer sort of look into the middle distance and start rocking, I always say, right, just get them a taxi, get her a taxi, get them home. They're going to do it now. They've got it. They've got excited about it. So if a writer walks out of your room, the spring in the step, and wanting to dash home and write some brilliant stuff, then you've done your job. If they've gone, right, I've got a list of things that are wrong with my script, I'll go and fix them, you have not done your job. The other thing, and this is a subtler one, and I get in trouble every time I say it, removing the flaws of a script will not improve it. It will not improve it. You are not there to remove the flaws. You are there to grow the good bits, right? Flaws are fine. They'll probably fall out anyway. You are there, what you want to tell a writer, see this bit here, this character here, this sequence here, that is gold dust. Tell them that, because they'll want to hear those words again, and they will go and grow that part of the script. You're not there to list what's wrong. I mean, there's loads of things wrong, but there's loads of things wrong with Hamlet. One I want to bring up, actually. It bugs me every time. Death, an undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveller returns. Except your dad! He was in the first scene, you Kellic! What are you talking about? Not a bloody mystery, is it? So, sorry, I mean, it gets in my tits and that. That's the note I didn't give it. That, and don't do a play inside a play. It's awful. Right? You haven't finished the first play, don't start a second one. Been at it 4.5 hours. Anyway, sorry, these are things you shouldn't say to writers. Don't say that to William Shakespeare should you meet him. It is about growing the good and about saying what's exciting. If there's nothing exciting about it, tell them to throw it away. But if there's something you like, tell them what it is, articulate it, grow it, and send them out of the room with a spring in their step. If you see that, you've got a good draft coming. If they're going, well, see what I can do, oh, you haven't. You're going to go backwards. Okay, another point. If a script's good, consider fucking off, right? I'm not kidding. If a script makes you turn the pages and you think, oh, bloody exciting, treat it like it's radioactive. Or make very, very careful not to make any changes, because scripts can get worse as well as better, right? And if the better a script is, the more likely a change is likely to hurt it, right? So watch it. When you've got a belter, treat it with great care. I have been myself. I have made things worse by interfering when I shouldn't have, with other people's work and my own. You've got to be very careful with that. All right.
Whenever working with a mystery, do you ever have a solution set out from the start, or do you work backwards from that, or just kind of like go with the flow?
If there's a mystery, I've got a solution. Yeah, you kind of have to. There isn't another way of doing that. I've always...
Never once sort of winged it before?
No. You can't wing that. You really can't wing it. What can happen is that you get to your solution and it's rubbish. So you write a different one. Or you find something better along the way. But no, winging it. I kind of think that you're ready to start a script and you've got a beginning, you've got a development, and you know the end. You know what's going to happen when what the punchline, as it were, to put it in comedy terms, is. If you've got those three pillars looming out in the fog, I don't know why pillars would be looming out of fog, but you know what I mean. If you've got those things in sight, then some of the other stuff you can play around with. But no, you do need to be strict about that. You also have to be strict about saying everything can change, but you need an ending, and a mystery needs a solution. Yeah.
So back with season 5, I think you touched on this in interviews before, but it's been said that the writing started before David Tennant was decided that he was going to leave. What sort of changes did you have to make to your script, or was it too early on that there wasn't much you needed to change?
We hadn't started writing. What we had was a situation where David hadn't completely made up, or rather David had made up his mind to leave. I'd started plotting what we were going to do, hadn't started writing. And then David, who I know really well, a good friend, started, as they all do, started hesitating at the door. None of them are happy about leaving. They all think, I promise you this, all the Doctor Who's think, they're the real one. So I don't know how it goes on between David Tennant and Peter Davison at the Sunday lunch, but you know, they all think they're the real one. So he got hesitant about leaving. And so I quickly replotted what the plan was to introduce the new Doctor and pitched it to David. I didn't ever really think he was going to stay, because all he'd have done was prolong the agony of leaving, because he would only have done 1 more year. Of course, he comes back for the Day of the Doctor, then he comes back again for 3 more. And there are now so many David Tennant Doctors knocking around, he can have a sitcom, sharing a flat with himself. That's my pitch for the spin-off.
One thing that I wanted to ask is that you were talking about how they don't produce as many sitcoms the way that they do, and in general, there's a lot less what I call low budget television, where you've got a chance for writers to develop new writers to come in, and it's less risky than a high budget project. Would you say that that has impacted the scene, writers? Yeah.
What, the way of writers getting into the business?
Yeah.
Well, the soaps are still around, and that's often an entry, you know, and everyone that does an episode of Doctors, you know, I mean, those are still around. They're not as massive as they used to be, but they're still around. And children's television, which is not as abundant, was a great way in for me, because they're more likely to take a punt on a new writer, because every new writer becomes a slightly less new writer and quite successful wants to go and write for adults. That's the truth. There's vacancies all the time. I think it does impact it a bit, yeah. But you've got to look at the other side. Okay, the other side is you have in your pocket more technology to make a television program than we used to make Doctor Who. You've got an iPhone. You've got money. You could make your own television program. You've got broadcasting. You know, I used to make films in 8mm. I did. I had my sister Vicky playing Sherlock Holmes and Doctor Who, and they met. So I did that. That's what, so in one sense, yes, that is. But in the other sense, what's keeping you? Why don't we just go and make something? I mean, there's nothing like seeing so educational as seeing your work in front of an audience. Not always pleasantly educational, but nothing as educational as that. Tremendous to hear the laughter and the silence. So, I don't know, but yes, I think it has impacted it a bit.
How has the increase of premature cancellations of so many other?
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm deaf as a post. Could you speak up a bit?
Okay, yeah, I do that. I was wondering with the increase of premature cancellations of so many popular shows, how has it affected your writing process and the development of future projects?
Because I've done successful ones, or that there are more successful ones.
No, I was meaning with today's world, with all these shows that are pretty popular getting canceled so early, how has that changed your writing process and development for future ones?
If I'm understanding it, and I might not be, there are more shows made now, and there are more, and that's good. I mean, that just means there's more opportunities to make shows. I mean, how does it impact me in particular? Or, well, at some point I'll be outmoded and discarded, and that's fair enough. But I don't know. I don't think you can really afford to think about things like that. As a writer or as a creator, you should just be going towards the ones that you care about. You're drawn to write something or make something. Make that. Mostly people won't like it very much, but sometimes they will. You know, that's, you don't really try, and I was trying to answer this question earlier, I didn't make a very good job of it. You're not, you can only write what you want to write and what you think is interesting. If you ever find yourself being so appallingly arrogant as to try and work out what the next successful thing is going to be and write that, or what people want now, you don't know. You don't, I mean, you know how to buy a Christmas present for your mum. How the hell would you know what everybody in the whole world is going to watch next? Write the story you want to write. At least you'll like it. I mean, maybe no one else will. That's quite often the case. But, you know, right, you can't worry about that other stuff. You're there to be you.
Thank you.
Massive army of aliens away, and I thought this is the coolest thing ever. What was the process of finding Matt Smith to take over for David, especially such a beloved actor?
Well, I mean, the process is a lot about people we don't talk about often enough about casting directors. Casting directors go and, you know, you say, take the challenge of refining down the entire acting profession to maybe 10 people. And shove them in front of you. They're really, really important. Andy Pryor, who has cast many of the Doctors, all of them since the show came back, Andy Pryor has been involved in. In terms of what happened with that, I was absolutely set on the idea of an older Doctor. I thought, with David having been, back then, a young, sexy Doctor, I thought, well, we can't just do that again. We should definitely, so in my head when I was writing for an older, more professorial type of Doctor. Which just shows you how stupid I am, because the second person through the door, because I remember thinking, right, here we start. We're going to see millions of people for the role of Doctor Who. Second person through the door was Matt Smith. And, you know, it was straight away to, oh, and you think, oh, well, that's him. It's just him. I know I've got to see all these other people, but it's definitely that guy, you know? So it just was. I mean, it's not very, very difficult to spot talent. It really isn't. I mean, that's the whole point of a talent. It's easy to see, you know? So I remember Piers and I just went for a drink afterwards going, geez, did we do all the other ones? So that was the process. Oddly enough, it was the second time I'd met Matt Smith that week. The first time I met him was at our first casting meeting for Doctor Watson and Sherlock. And he was the first person through the door. And we loved him. We thought he was brilliant. And the casting director, Kate Rose James, said, this boy's going to be a star. But he was too much of a Sherlock Holmes and not enough of a Dr. Watson, is what I said. But it did flick through my mind. He's kind of wacky, isn't he? And I remember Mark telling me he was accidentally following Matt Smith to the underground station back in the days when either of them used such transport. And he thought, he looks completely crazy. And he just looks like this all the time. So that was it. That was it.
So I remember earlier you were talking about how the real way to get into the industry is just to submit your scripts, just to get good and then submit them. But who do you submit them to? How do you make those types of connections in the industry?
Well, the trouble with me answering that question is I know very, very good answers from the late 1980s. I don't really know what the resources are now or who you send them to. I'm not up to date on it at all. So she'd ask someone else. The main thing I was trying to say is get good at the writing. I mean, addressing the envelope is a solvable problem. There used to be a script unit at the BBC. I don't think there is now. There are various resources that the BBC has, the writers' room and so on. It's very good. There are mentor schemes. I'm mentoring someone at the moment. You can try and get involved in all of those, but above all, write every day and read every day. something will happen. It's an achievable job.
If I may ask, how does a mentorship scheme work?
I don't even know how well they work, but what happens is you're assigned someone and they write drafts, you give notes, they write another draft, and possibly at the end of that you try and get that under someone's nose. None of this is a guarantee of success. There are, my wife, Sue, works at the film, the National Film School, and we both support the National Youth Theatre. But it's a small number of people who get into these things. It's always a small number of people. I didn't do any of them, right? I didn't do any of those things. So I can't speak to their brilliance, but they are very, very good though. I don't know how, because it's a long time since, and my fiddle was eccentric, but I don't know anyone whose route in wasn't eccentric. The thing you have to be able to do is do it, or make a show on an iPhone. Get your stuff out there. Get in front of an audience. Put a play on at the Fringe. That was brilliant fun.
I think we're going to take just 2 more questions, so the rest of you don't get picked, I'm afraid. Tough luck.
Hello. I was a big fan of the Inside Man.
Oh, good.
So you've explained earlier on that theatre was your first inspiration, and I was just wondering what were some of those when you were younger, and what's inspired you to get back into working in theatre?
Right. I used to, obviously I'm tremendously lowbrow. You've seen my work. So I really liked musicals. I used to put musicals on at my dad's school. So I still think they're bloody brilliant. If you're in London and you've got the time and the money, go and see the musical of Back to the Future. It's absolutely bloody astonishing. It's astonishing. You can't believe what they managed to do on that stage. So I loved all that, and I liked comedies. I'm a tremendous fan of Neil Simon, who wrote brilliant play after brilliant play, and they're basically sitcoms. They are sitcoms on stage, and they're fantastically funny. I loved his stuff, loved it. Whenever The Unfriend got its relatively few, but substantial, very bad reviews, it would always say, this is just basically a sitcom, and I'd say, yes! Obviously, we're not exactly concealing that, are we? That's like criticising a poem for being a sonnet. What are you talking about? So those were the things, and why did I go back to it later? Because when I finished Doctor Who and Sherlock, which both sort of came to an end for me at the same time, says he, unsure whether Sherlock might ever come back and back at work on Doctor Who, but never mind. When they finished, I just thought I need to do something different, so I sat down and wrote a play. I sent it around. Nobody wanted it. So I did what I did. I took my own advice, which is always to blame yourself and write something else. So I wrote another play, which was The Unfriend, which people did want, and it went on. So I was just excited to do something different. And at 62, it was brilliant to do something different. I hadn't a clue what was going on. In television, I don't have a clue what's going on either, but I can't admit that, because I've been doing it for 37 years. You can't admit, I actually don't know what that is. That's the camera. But in theatre, I was saying, what's a proscenium? What's the underpants? So all those things. So for that reason.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Then coming to the very, very final question.
This is where they get me.
Were there any other sci-fi influences for you besides early Doctor Who with extreme movies?
Sorry, say that again?
Any sci-fi influences for you besides early Doctor Who?
Well, I liked science fiction, but science fiction for me was always just as a genre when it wasn't Doctor Who, I'd always just be thinking, you know what would make this better? Put Doctor Who in it. Just like whenever I see a good mystery, I think, Sherlock Holmes would be good in this. And if it's a spy thriller, I always think, where's James Bond? He'd shoot people, it'd be great. So, I mean, I do like science fiction. I've always watched, I love Star Trek. I like all the things that everybody loves. You know, Star Wars is great. But, I mean, I'm not so devoted or aware of those shows that I've learned to hate them the way true fans do. I just like them because they're colourful and fun and great. And Star Trek's a brilliant, brilliant show. And I dip in and out, especially that original run. I think, what a cracker of a show that was. So, and I read a fair bit of science fiction. I don't so much now. Obviously, I love The Time Traveler's Wife, if that counts. That's really a sort of a heartbreaking romance, really, isn't it? But it makes incredibly clever use of science fiction. What about you? Do you like science fiction? Are you a science fiction fan?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What am I missing? What should I be watching?
I feel like I'm only, well, no, I'm still good recommendations.
Can I just recommend For All Mankind?
What?
For All Mankind.
For All Mankind.
Apple TV. Absolutely phenomenal bit of sci-fi.
All right, okay. Okay, I'll go and watch
For
that.
the timeline thing, the Soviets beat the moon. The Soviets beat the moon within like 1 week, and it sets things off now.
Completely different way.
Wonderful.
All right,
For All
okay.
Mankind.
All right, I'll do it. For All Mankind. Awesome.
You want to put your hand up?
Yeah.
John Scalzi's books are very good.
Who?
John Scalzi's books.
I met him once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I met him at a science fiction thing.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
I would really love to keep doing this, but I'm so sorry, everyone. We are going to have to stop now. It's, actually, why am I looking at my watch? It's completely broken. But,
It's 12:28. You could get one fast one in.
Okay, one very, very
Who's
quick.
got a fast question?
Go on, let's, go on, very, very
It's gonna
quickly.
be fast.
The man in the blue hoodie there, quickly, very quickly.
Blue hoodie,
Blue hoodie,
you're on.
very quickly.
That's you, mate.
That's you there.
Look down, you're wearing a blue hoodie.
I heard beating.
My question is in Doctor Who, was there any ideas that you had that you wanted to do but you couldn't do it due to budget reasons or anything like that?
Not really, because I did it for so long, and I'm still writing so many that I think I've done all my ideas twice. I think, and you know the budgetary limitation of Doctor Who is built into the show. It's built in. You trap them in a room and they have to escape through a tunnel. There's 8 million aliens out there, but only 3 of them show up and 2 of them wear helmets. And one takes, and you see an expensive prosthetic. You don't go outside. Can't hear a thing, mate. Talk to the other 8 million. There's no one out there, mate.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. What a pleasure that was. Thank you. Thank you all.
I don't think there's anything, I mean, that round of applause shows how much we've all really greatly enjoyed and appreciated this, so thank you so, so much. I mean, I think, at least for me, this would be the defining thing for my university life. I'm not going to remember anything more than this, so thank you so, so much, Stephen. And
she's waiting out there.
And yes, thank you for coming out, and I think I have more to say, so
Thank you
go
so
and enjoy
much,
the rest of the
everyone.
evening.
Okay.
Thank you so much.